Hi gang, I'm back again. I finally got all the pieces cut for the Viking. Some of these pieces are so small, they're about the size of the head of a pin. As a matter of fact, one of the eyes is even about half the size of the head of a pin. And these pieces were so small that I've got a little bit of a problem here in the fact that I usually test fit everything to make sure it all fits before I start gluing up. And I haven't been able to do that. And the reason why is because every time I adjust one little piece, I'd nudge something and the rest of them would kind of go all over the place. So eventually I just decided that what I would do here is glue up what I can, which is the legs and the arm and the shield, and then and the helmet, and then wait for that to dry and settle, and then come back in and test fit everything else. Because those pieces will allow me to really figure out where I'm going. It turned out to be 136 pieces in the Viking, which is a lot, and some of these pieces are so small they're about the size of a head of a pin. Matter of fact, one of the eyes is so small it's about half the size of a head of a pin. Very difficult to cut, very difficult to fit, but it's all starting to come together real nice now. Let's take a quick look around at where I'm at before I even start this process. Here are some of the little tiny pieces that I couldn't quite seem to test fit. As you can see, some of these pieces, like those little pieces of the ab there, are really tiny, or these little pieces of the face. All these pieces right here go into making up the face. So as you can see, there's a lot of pieces. This is just one arm. This is just the top of an arm. And as you can see, this is the mess I've inherited right at the moment that I'm going to start gluing up. So we're going to take this in steps and just take our time and glue up what we can. As you can see, the shield is just all over the place. And we're just going to start getting ready to go. I got a few more pieces to cut, and then I can start the process of trying to glue this puppy up. Now in order to do that, because the pieces are so tight, I'm going to have to do it in pieces. Because there's no way I can do it in the 20 minutes it takes for the epoxy to set. So what I'm probably going to do here is I'm going to do all the pieces here in the leg, which will allow me to set this piece right here, this shield piece, and get that right where it's supposed to be. Then I'll completely build the shield, probably let that dry, and then start working on the rest of this body, because this is really, as you can see, all those little pieces in there, and they all have to fit. This is really where things get sticky. So I'm going to make sure that everything works well before I start going, but I'm going to have to definitely need some kind of a plan in order to get this all glued up right. And so here we're going to start. I'm going to start with the feet and the ground in here. So I'm just going to lay in a nice generous helping of epoxy, which as usual has been colored. I've colored it with rosewood dust, so it's going to be a nice dark brown. That way if any lines of glue do show, which is, boy, the fit on this is really nice, so I don't think there's going to be a lot of that. But if there is, then it's going to show like a nice dark brown and won't really look all that ugly against the design. Always a good thing to do, just in case. As you can see, I'm using a lot of epoxy. I want these pieces to stick nice and clean. So we're just going to come right up here into the leg here, into the left leg, which is actually his right leg since he's facing me. And we're going to start laying in the pieces real quick. And we're going to have to use a lot of epoxy as we go on with this. We want to make sure we just do it in parts, because I don't want this epoxy to dry on me while I'm trying to set the pieces up. As you can see, I've got a drawing of what I'm working on, because there's so many little pieces here, I may forget how they all go together. So here we go. I'm going to drop in the shadow for the ground. And I already have like the boot, how the boot goes into the ground here. So that goes in real nice. Then we're going to put the shadow, the rest of the shadow and some more of the ground and everything is starting to fit in there real sharp. Start putting in the other boot. And this is where it's good to have around some paper towels, because the hands start, oh, I almost forgot to take my ring off. It's very important to take your ring off, because if you get this epoxy in your ring, yeah, you'll be taking it to a jeweler to get it cleaned, if he can even do it. So we want to make sure, okay, there it is. I just ran into a case where I had to double check the design to make sure where this piece went. And we're just going to keep going here. Okay, this is what I got so far. You can see I've got everything but basically the torso. However, there's 56 pieces that go inside the torso. So as you can see, there's still quite a bit more gluing to do. And we'll probably pick that up tomorrow. Well, this is day 2 of the gluing. And what I've done here, it's a little hard to see through the glue, but I put in all the arm and I cut it across the beard to the shield, so it kind of locks that area in. Now the next thing I'm going to do is the torso and then the face. And then I'll have it all glued up and be ready to actually make this thing look nice. Only a handful of pieces left. Let's see if we put a little bit more light on that. Of course, these are really going to be the tricky ones because these are the face pieces. But that's it. Everything else has been glued up. Well, that's about as ugly as it gets right there. All glued up. Matter of fact, the entire head is just like covered in glue. So we're going to see what this all looks like, because as soon as this dries up, we are going to get ready to roll, and the next part is to level it out. Well, check out the mess I made! It never looks worse than it does right now, but in, say, about an hour, this is going to look great. What we got to do is got to take it all down, smooth it all out, and get it ready to be for the next step, which is to start the finishing process. So I'm going to come in here with a Dremel tool, high-speed Dremel tool, because some of these materials, like the stone and the wood, are so high above the rest of the wood that we really got to get those down a little bit before we can get in there with the files and the sandpaper. Once I start getting anywhere close to the top, I'm not going to be using that Dremel anymore, because it can really tear the guitar up fast. Yeah, I don't really recommend this unless you're really good with a Dremel. Because you do not want that Dremel to get anywhere near the surface of the guitar, because you could put a dent in the guitar that it's going to be really difficult to get out. So let's get going on that process. This is a high-speed Dremel tool. I actually use the digital Dremels, which I like a lot better because you can control the speed a lot better. The regular Dremels that you get at, like, you know, Home Depot or so on and so forth, I just don't find have the control. This one actually has a digital readout on the back that I can use to set to get exactly the speed I want. The only place I've been able to find these, they used to advertise them on television and stuff, but the only place I seem to be able to find these is at Dremel themselves. If you call Dremel themselves, you can actually buy these. Unfortunately, at that point, you don't get like a store discount. You pretty much buy them at list. And I know you can get a regular Dremel for about 60 bucks. These are like $135, but they're really worth it. If you're doing any of this kind of work, you really want to get the digital Dremels, a lot better. Well, let's get moving. And you can see I already got my air mask on, because this generates a lot of dust, and I just don't like having a lot of dust in my face. So let's get going, and we'll see what we get here in about an hour, and we'll be ready to take some pictures and finally get this video on the website.